Hey guys.
Hey, welcome back. This is Hometown History with Jamie and Dami, and this is our extra interview with Greg Halpin, who is a retired fire chief. So to start off, could you tell us a little bit about your early years with the fire department?
Sure. Actually, I'm the third generation from my family to be in the fire department. My mother's father was a volunteer at the rescue fire company, and then he worked with my dad at the bus company. And he told Dad, he said, the buses aren't going to be around forever. You might want to think about getting a job somewhere else. And he applied for the fire department, the police department. Fortunately, the fire department called first, and he became a firefighter for the city. And all four of his sons followed him into the fire department.
All four?
Yeah, all four.
Was that a choice you had?
Oh yeah, we all chose. None of us were forced. Dad would have probably preferred we did something else, but we all kind
What
of
a legacy, though,
Yeah.
to have four sons following your footsteps.
You must remember your first fire.
Yes, actually my first week on the job was a basement fire, and it was literally half a block away from Mom and Dad's house
Wow.
on South Queen Street. So definitely knew the neighborhood because I lived there for 30 years.
Wow.
Did you ever have to fight a fire for someone you knew?
Ooh. No, not that I can think of. I know the fire department responded to my wife's house before we were married for a fire,
wow.
and my shift was working, but I was on vacation.
Wow.
So how did you end up meeting her then?
Actually, I'd known her. We had dated when we were younger, and,
Okay.
and drifted apart, and got back together not too long after that fire.
Oh,
What a
that's
story would that have been?
circumstance.
Like, how did you meet? Wow, I
My
put out the
husband
fire.
rescued by carrying me over his shoulder. Like
Remember that time your house burnt down and I showed up?
So firefighting then, it comes in your family, you've enjoyed it, had a whole career in it.
Yeah, the nice part to me about being in the fire department was when you went to work, you didn't know what you were going into work to do. It wasn't the same 9 to 5 Monday through Friday drill. We worked day shifts, we worked night shifts, we worked weekends, we worked holidays, and every day was different.
Because outside of York City and then the fire, the Fire United, everyone's volunteer. You were one of the few that were paid, right?
Well, when I started, York was one of the few departments that had career firefighters, and of course, like you said, York Area United has them. Greater Hanover area has them. And actually, some of the smaller companies are getting paid people now. Safer, which is Dallastown, and Yorkana, they've got career people now. I think Newberry Township has some career people in their company.
I think so.
So yeah, volunteerism sadly is dying off in all organizations, but in the fire service in particular, it's getting very difficult. There's a lot of training, a lot of time invested in being a volunteer firefighter. So the numbers are dwindling, and more they're going to have to supplement with career people.
Firefighters, there was about a year and a half ago, a man hit my house, and it was unfortunately a fatal, and I had to call police. And I remember the fire showed up, firemen at Newburytown, and it was them who, when he hit the house, it was so hard that a pipe broke in the basement. And the one firefighter was like, I think I have some joints. I'm going to run back to my house and I'm going to get you some joints and fix your pipes. Which that was just so amazing.
Above and beyond the call of duty.
Yes.
Someone who volunteers their time to be a volunteer firefighting is a very caring person, because they're getting nothing out of it but the satisfaction of helping other people.
So we went over tonight in episode 5.6, social institutions. We talked about how orphanages and prisons and poorhouses take chaos and they bring order to it. What was it like before we had firefighters? What was it like?
Well, it was citizens helping others. I mean, the early, you go back to the 1700s, and it was literally everybody bringing their buckets and
bucket brigades.
Making bucket brigades to get water from wherever the water source was to the fire. And York, the organized fire service in York, actually predates the country. The first fire company was established in January of 1771. So our fire protection predates the country.
That's so cool.
For years, the York fire companies responded all over the county because most of the rural areas didn't have fire companies. It was just, Hanover had, Wrightsville had, and a couple other bigger boroughs had. But most other people didn't have organized fire protection until almost into the 20th century.
So you're talking horses and wagons
and buckets.
And buckets.
And the original fire apparatus was pulled by hand.
Wow.
So it wasn't until the 1880s, roughly, when we started getting horses.
Was it a hand pump with a hose? Okay.
Yeah, they'd had like long bars on either side of the wagon, and they would have to get dozens of men to pump on either side, which would draw the water from the water source and pump it through the hose.
Wow, that's amazing. Yep.
Thank goodness technology has advanced.
And sadly, the fire service kind of fought technology every time. When they got horses, they thought were they going to lose their being able to fight fires, because horses can replace so many men.
Horses
and
would
then
come in and get.
Yep,
That's
and then the gasoline engines replaced the horses, and they fought that. And we're still, we still get stubborn.
That's everyone though.
But technology has really advanced the fire service
good.
by leaps and bounds.
So, in addition to firefighting, you also are heavily interested in the police museum. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was involved in the Fire Museum of York County when it was an independent organization back in the 80s and 90s. And John Stein, who was a sergeant in the city police department, was gathering history on the York City Police Department because nobody was really keeping track of that. So he decided he had enough and he wanted to start a police museum. And he kind of recruited me to join from the Fire Museum because I had that experience there. And as I always like to tease him, they needed a firefighter to make sure things ran right.
That's a good one.
Firefighter humor.
I like that.
So yeah, I got involved in the police museum. We organized 30 years ago in 1995. We maintain a museum at 54 West Market Street up until 98, 99, when we were kind of sitting in the middle of a redevelopment project. And decided it was best for the community if we sold the building to the developer. It was going to redevelop the area. Sadly, ever since, we've been hunting for a new home. And
25 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
We just haven't found. We had a couple near misses. We had a couple buildings that didn't work out. We had 2 that we looked at buying, and after the inspectors got in and looked at them, it just wasn't suitable for us. So we continue to look. So if anybody's got a building and wants to help out the police museum, please let us know.
And that's an active, you guys are actually searching for a place.
Yes,
that's a
we've been
real
actively
call to
searching.
action.
Yes.
Like if you know somebody.
Right, and if I remember correctly, you had a display at the York Haven Library not long ago
We did with
their
Nate
historical
Chip,
society.
yes. Charles was very generous in allowing us to get some of our artifacts on display up there for 3 months, which gave us some great publicity and some people who hadn't seen the artifacts before.
Well, and I will say that Charlie told me that got more people through the door than he's ever had before.
Awesome.
Yeah, because it's artifacts that people have never seen before.
Right.
So that's really a huge draw for people to say, when's the last time someone's seen this? 25 years ago when you had a building.
Right.
So.
And we still have all the artifacts are safely in storage, and we just are dying to find a place to display them again.
Yeah.
We even have the trapdoor and the gallows out of this building from when they hung the last prisoner in New York County.
Wow.
That's what Chief Thomas told me, that you guys had the gallows. That's dark and interesting.
Yeah.
That's the kind of history we're interested in.
Yeah, kind of. Yes. Yeah, that would be interesting to see how you exhibit that.
Right. So yeah, we kind of expanded to not covering just law enforcement, but then the crime and
Public
punishment
safety,
side
right?
of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have some artifacts from the county prison here, and some cells and some other items from different lockups.
Well, speaking of lockups, you've been working on documenting them, and I had no idea there were so many around the county.
Yeah, I fell into the position of webmaster for the police museum years ago after a couple false starts. It's like, well, I can do that. So I learned how to put a website together, and I've been maintaining it ever since. And our goal is, especially now with not having a home, is to try to share more of our history digitally, so at least we're in the public eye and we're sharing the history, because having the history and keeping it to yourself doesn't do any good. So,
Hey, good
so
job.
we try really hard to share the history. So John Stein and I had visited quite a few of the lockups in the different boroughs and towns throughout the county, and then we actually got to visit the lockups that are underneath the Columbia Market House, and there's 2 lockups in the old firehouse in New Oxford. So we visited those, we documented them with photographs, and
Thank you for doing that.
we have pages for all those on our website.
Good. How many lockups were there in the county?
We're still looking, so if anyone has information on lockups that's not on our website, please let us know. I know we have at least a dozen on our website, plus what York City had, through the years. Most of the boroughs and urban areas like that had them, because if you had a prisoner that needed to come here in the early 1900s, that was a day trip.
Yeah.
Till you got them loaded up on a train, got them into town, got them from the train station to the prison, and then got back to your town. You pretty much ate up a whole day, because trains ran on specific schedules. So you could have a 2-hour layover in York till you got back to your town. And the real funny thing is we discovered as we've located more and more of these lockups, a lot of them were located by the railroad tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, like, it was a less desirable area.
Mm.
So it was a place people didn't really want to house because of the noise of the trains.
Right.
Plus, when they had to transport a prisoner from their lockup to the county lockup, they were by the railroad tracks.
Wow. What is your, so you've kind of dove into this like public safety history, the lockups, the prisons, fire, police. What's your favorite artifact? Your one cool thing about the museum that you can't wait to have on display?
Oh, there's so many things at the museum. When we had the museum at 54 West Market, we had put together a large display of pretty much every badge that we had that was used in York City for law enforcement, which includes, like, York had an auxiliary police back in the 50s and 60s, which was a volunteer police offshoot that was under civil defense. And they worked downtown a lot, like in the Christmas shopping season, with getting people across the crossings, you know, to not get hit by traffic. So at home, I actually have a guy I worked with. His name was Kurt March, and his father, Bud March, was an auxiliary policeman back in the 50s and 60s. So I have Bud's, well, the museum has Bud's uniform shirt, his badge, and his two little white embroidered auxiliary police caps.
That's so fun.
From the auxiliary police from New York City.
Oh, I love that. Maybe this can be a call out for Commissioner Muldrow to re-kick back up auxiliary police. How fun would that be? And also kind of scary. Like, I want to make sure that they go through proper training and are qualified.
Yeah, they didn't carry weapons, but they were definitely to assist
people,
the police
right?
department.
Assist and help. That's fantastic.
Is that a precursor to a constable?
No, constables were more of like an elected area law enforcement person. Constables were definitely law enforcement before police officers, constables and sheriffs, and then the police force came out of that. And some of the different positions that the police force had through the year are really interesting. Lamp-lighters were actually a police function in the early years. Someone went around and lit the gas lamps at night.
Right. Light equals safety, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And we actually, in the police museum's collection, we have a York lamp-lighters ladder that was used by one of the last lamp-lighters. Yep.
Oh man, I can't wait for this museum to happen.
Well, do you want to take a second and tell everyone the name of the website if they're not familiar with
Absolutely. It's we are the Police Heritage Museum, and our website is www.policeheritagemuseum.com. And we have quite a collection of digital artifacts on there, and we have like the roster of the York City police chiefs through the years. For those that have photos, we have photos of those. The lockups we have on there. We have some case studies that we did on some crimes in the past, so there's some information on those, including the murder in Clyde.
There you go. A very famous hometown murder.
That could be, if we wanted to get into an interesting segment, we could get into the various deaths, odd things that happened around town.
Oh,
yeah. There's plenty of them through history.
Tommy cracks me up because whenever I am going out and about, I always somehow turn it back to like York County, especially when I worked in Dauphin County. Like, that's micro. Dommy's like Newberrytown. Like, she always can pull it back. Did you know in Lewisberry?
All roads lead to Newberry Township. I'm convinced. So.
Well, she is our unofficial mayor of Newberrytown.
Did you hear that, people? Millertown.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Oh, thank you. We're glad to be able to share our history in another way.
Yeah, cool. All right, well,
Thank
thanks, guys.
you.
Make sure you go and watch the Mean Bar episode.